Right then, let's ruffle a few feathers within the fitness industry, shall we? So too often, there are a number of PTs, coaches, fitness influencers, etc. who will always pin the blame for weight gain upon individuals. So personal responsibility and individual responsibility is the cause of weight gain, with nothing else affecting it. So i.e., if you are fat, it's your fault. Now, in my opinion, that is only half the truth, and it's probably not as clear cut as what people think. Remember, if you're liking the sound of this video, or you've checked out some of my other videos, make sure that you're following me, or at least subscribe to catch any more. So the issue that I have with PTs, coaches, fitness influencers, knobheads, etc., all pinning the blame on individuals for the reason as to why they're fat is because it's not necessarily the entire issue. For example, let's talk a little bit about genetics. So genetics will always play a huge part in one's fitness journey, whether that's the goal of trying to look as muscly as possible, look as strong as possible, or weight loss, because genetics can play a huge part in weight loss or the ease in which someone can actually lose weight. For example, there are two hormones within the body that kind of have a big role in appetite. This is known as ghrelin, the hormone that's responsible for hunger, and leptin, the hormone that's responsible for satiety or feeling full. Now, some people are going to be more sensitive to these two things than others. For example, multiple studies have found that people who are obese and who suffer from chronic obesity are actually less sensitive to leptin and more sensitive to ghrelin, which means that they're going to be more hungry and less satiated than somebody with regular sensitivity to these hormones. You might also be born with more ghrelin and less leptin being secreted within your bloodstream, which means that you are going to be basically more hungry throughout your life and less satiated throughout your life as well. Evidence has actually found that there's a correlation between biological parents and their biological kids when it comes to obesity or fat gain, and zero correlation when it comes to adoptive parents and adoptive kids regarding fat gain, which goes to show that there must be something to do with genetics affecting your ability to either lose fat or the ease in which you put on fat. Now, I'm not taking individual responsibility away completely, because let's be honest, if you find that you are more hungry and less satisfied than a regular person, it probably won't be in your best interest to sit on the settee and devour a whole bar of Cadbury's. It'd probably be in your best interest to actually put steps in place to help account for it and to do well despite the issues that you're facing. After all, a good poker player will always find a way to win, even though they might have a shit hand. Now let's talk a little bit more about environment. So your environment and how you're brought up will massively affect the long-term or future success of maintaining a healthy weight or furthermore losing weight. Now, when I was a kid, my mum never really bought fizzy pop, and when she did, it was like the shit 20p fizzy pop that tasted like wank, you know, like Roller Cola or Panda Pop or something like that. I just wasn't keen, and therefore I didn't really drink much fizzy pop. And what that has done is that's actually taught me to, you know, drink more water, and when I am thirsty, to not really choose fizzy pop as my first go-to. And that's actually seeped into my adult life. Like, even now, I don't really drink too much fizzy pop. I might have a can of Coke every now and then. I have a sugar-free Red Bull most days. And this is because I've brought this from how I was brought up. Additionally, we also really didn't eat many takeaways. Like, my mum really only bought us one Mackey's every single year on Christmas Eve as a treat. And we barely had like Domino's pizza or KFC or anything like that. We probably had it like once every couple of months as, once again, a treat. Now, if we look at somebody who's probably been brought up on drinking a lot of soda, drinking a lot of pop, and eating a lot of takeaways, then they'll be bringing them behaviours, habits, and environmental factors into their adult life, which might make it really, really hard to break. Because after all, it's harder to break habits than it is to build new ones. So this will massively affect a person's ease in which they find losing weight. We're also in a society where if we want food, we can literally get it from a touch of our button. Literally, you want a takeaway, Uber Eats, 20 minutes. Whereas back in the day, we actually had to get up, we had to go out to the shops, we had to go out to our takeaway, we had to stand in front of the big board of food items in front of us and wait for Bossman to cook our food and then walk all the way home trying to keep it as warm as possible. Whereas now we can literally just sit on our asses and wait for it to get delivered straight to our door, which means the overall caloric expenditure of ordering food is actually reduced. Funnily enough, the overall caloric expenditure in society is actually taking a dip and is actually lower than what it was 10, 20 years ago. And society doesn't make it any easier for us to obviously want to lose weight. You walk into any supermarket And the chocolate, the crisps, all the high palatable, tasty, high calorie foods are literally right at the door. This is something known as the food proximity theory, whereby if something's closer to you and easier to get, you'll probably want to get that food instead of something that's further away. So society isn't making it any easier at all. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, sure, you should hold some personal responsibility if you are overweight and want to lose weight, but it's not entirely your fault. It's how you've been brought up, it's how you act, it's the lifestyle that you live, it's the environment that you actually live in, which is probably affecting your ability to lose weight. But the thing is, you have full control over this. You have full control over how easy you want to make losing weight. Granted, to begin with, it might be really, really difficult, but you still do have 100% control over it. For example, when you do want a takeaway, don't order it off your phone. Go out and get it. Before you go to the supermarket, potentially eat something beforehand so you're not tempted to buy a shit ton of chocolate, which you'll probably overeat on once you take it back home. Put steps in place to begin changing your habits and your behaviours, and over time they will accumulate to make your weight loss journey a hell of a lot easier. As I said at the start, a good poker player will still find a way to win, even though he may have been dealt a shit hand. And that's exactly what you need to do. If you feel that the cards are against you, try and find a way to win despite that. If this did help, feel free to leave a like. If you got any questions, feel free to leave a comment, because I'd be more than happy to have a chat with you. And if you want any more tips exactly like this, make sure you're either subscribed to this channel or following me. Have a good one.